Chris. Merry Christmas to you. I see what your Black Friday's like.
He does the work though.
We'll call a regular meeting in the New Ulm Economic Development Authority for Tuesday, October 13, 2020 at 8 a.m. to order. The first item on the agenda is roll call, so we'll have to do a roll call.
Commissioner Brum,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. We do have a quorum. We'll go on to item number 2, meeting by public notice, by teleconference. So I don't think we need we need to receive it in order to file. Take motion.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Roll call again, or?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Gotta do roll call.
Commissioner Brum,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 3, approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brum,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 4, administrative activities for September 2020. Heather?
Right, good morning. I don't have anything unusual to highlight this month, actually, so you've received your report unless there's any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Heather? Seeing none, entertain a motion to accept it.
I'll offer the motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brum,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 5, EDA claims list. You have it in front of you. Any questions? Or Heather, you want anything that stands out, jumps out?
The only thing is we did have a shower that was leaking at Broadway House, so that was a major repair. This is our third one. So we're starting to see those fail as they've aged.
Okay.
A new painting company, that's how we roll?
Yeah.
It's all about the
Why not?
marketing, yeah.
It's all about marketing. I'll offer a motion to approve the,
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brum,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
yes,
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 6, commercial property rehab loan clarification. Audra?
Yes, good morning. So in April of 2020, this body did approve a commercial property rehab loan to Andy and Nancy Liliadin. The motion that's needed today is just to clarify that that is going to Liliadin Business Properties LLC. So your motion would be, it's the same people, it's the same amount, it's just we want to have the right business entity on the documents.
well, just to clean up, I'll offer that
Yep.
motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brum,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
I'm having a hard time hearing Heather.
Commissioner Yanni,
Same here. Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes,
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 6, economic development strategic plan. Audra?
All right, thank you. I'm going to give just a quick update on the strategic plan for economic development process. I feel like we've been clipping along pretty fast, and now we're going to screech to a little bit of a slower pace. So sorry about that. So As you know, there's been a group called the New Ulm Partnership that's been meeting. As was stated in the documents, that we've hired Jana King as a consultant to come in and help us do a lot of assessment of where we are and kind of what to do next. So you all received a video that I hope you had a chance to watch, and that was really a summary of the activity the group has had. Lots of interviews, surveys have gone out, and now that was kind of the compilation. Working different angles. We're also doing some peer community studies. We've already had a very significant conversation with Hutchinson. We'll have another one with Owatonna today. So that's been the work around that. One of the things that I'll just highlight a couple things in the survey, and then we can talk about the priorities list. She had a slide in the video that talked about today we want to talk about community priorities. That's kind of where we are. And so EDA has seen the video, so has the Chamber, and so has the New Ulm Economic Development Corporation. And so we're getting information from these groups, pulling it together, and then we will look at those in the context of how do we organize in the future to match those priorities in the next 3 years. There's another group, kind of a subgroup that's working on the values and the vision for what economic development looks like. So that is also some things that are going on. And we think in mid-November we might have a joint meeting of some sort of the three entities. One of the highlights that came out of the video was that there was a sentiment from all the surveys that we can do better. And so there's room for improvement. And she was happy to hear that everybody was also really engaged in the process. Like, they were enthusiastic about the opportunities that New Ulm has, and so to organize to be better. I did mention the peer communities. We met with Hutchinson already. We meet with Owatonna today. And then we're going to meet with Worthington, but they have a lot of leadership changes. So we are looking for one more community. It might be Cambridge, just based upon size and some other things. So that is the update of where that group and that process is. The video kind of highlighted some of the homework that I hope you had a chance to look at the video. And so now I'm going to move to that little worksheet, and for Commissioner Schwartz and Yanni, that was attached to the email too. I hope that you can see that, or just to follow along. Because we don't have everybody here today, if you can just either write down what your top 3 priorities are on that sheet, and then I can collect them when we're done with the discussion. And then for those of you that are at home, I can settle up with you later or get an email, okay? But this is a discussion time. So, you can, if you have thoughts about the video, we've reserved a couple minutes here just to give you a chance to respond to what you saw in the video, or then she also really spent some time on the overview of findings section, where that list of 1, 2, 3 is listed. And so we will be talking about priorities. Did anybody have any quick thoughts on the video or on that information?
I thought she did a good job. My biggest concern with the whole project is the world of COVID. And it doesn't seem like she really spent a lot of time on that and how that has changed what we're looking at. And even my priorities, and looking through 1 through 8, are different today than they would have been in January. Because I think retention, to my opinion, is number 1 by far. Should be listed as number 1, but, and not that I might not have said that in January, but I just think COVID has changed a lot of this. So.
If you look at the time frame that she's working with, is the next 3 years. So, we're even different than we were in January, March. It feels different, COVID related.
My opinion,
yeah, we have a lot of little seasons here that are different. So that's good feedback. Any other thoughts that you had?
I do think that the list is very good. For me, it's retention and the expansion of the existing businesses, as well as business attraction, bringing those new businesses into town. With watching the video and the loss of citizens in New Ulm, that's a concern. That's a real concern when we should be growing. We are a great community. We have a lot to offer. We should be growing. And so whether it's, it has to be, for me, number one is retention and expansion of those businesses and bringing them in.
Okay. Any other comments at this point, or I can add another question to stir the pot?
I guess I agree with retention. I had that circled right away when you gave me the slip, so
Yeah?
it's very
I
important.
think there's a consensus here that retention is, because I wrote it down, and I agree, and I think, Les, you made a great point about COVID, and I think even despite, if we roll back to January, I think retention was probably a priority then, and it is now. It's just, I think our approach to it's going to need to change because of COVID, and I think we may have to develop some new strategies and be somewhat fluid in how we approach that, just because of we don't know. There's a great deal of uncertainty even going forward over the next 2 to 3 years. So I think we need to be adaptable, but that doesn't mean that we have to change our priorities. We just may need to look at different approaches. The only other one that I may have put is, I think downtown revitalization should be given maybe a little greater priority than it was. I think to have our community reach a certain level of vibrancy, that has to become an issue. And I think we need to take a more proactive approach in that. The only other thing that I don't see or didn't really recall addressing a whole lot was the expansion of Highway 14 to 4 lanes and what impact that may have on our community. I think it could create challenges for retaining our talent pool here, because if there's an easier commuter track to other communities, it may put stresses and challenges on our local workforce, and we need to be adaptive to that. I think we just need to keep that in mind at this point.
Yeah. So were there any elements that, go ahead, Jessica.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, I didn't see any, real surprises on the list. I thought it was a good, very comprehensive list, but now it's definitely finding those things to focus on. I think that talent attraction and retention and business retention kind of go hand in hand and are both areas to focus on as well. I think if we focus more on the downtown revitalization, it kind of leads into, enhancing the marketplace, enhancing the whole environment. As that's revitalized, it just leads to other things too. And if there's more housing downtown, it can even attract more people to live here too. So I guess those are my thoughts on it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schwartz, did you want to chime in at this point too?
Sure, I guess I'm in agreement with what's been said thus far, and Jessica kind of brought in something that they're all, a lot of them are intertwined. Some of the retention and attraction of business is a function of childcare and housing, and so it's, like I say, it's all intertwined. If I could ask a question and go backwards on the video, maybe this is for Audra, as far as this concept of traded clusters and local clusters, I wasn't quite following that, and maybe I can talk offline with you. I'm talking about, her video when she talked about the numbers of jobs in the marketplace.
Sure, Commissioner Schwartz, we can talk, I can send a clarification, or we can talk off after the meeting on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. But beyond that, I guess to reiterate, we're all maybe on the same boat. I had number 2 as number 1, retention and expansion of existing business. Like I always said, it's the cheapest route is what you have in your hand in regard to helping that grow, maintain and grow. And downtown revitalization is kind of a big, fuzzy word, then definitely needs to be defined. That's my comments.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
I would probably just move number 5 up, obviously close to the top as well. That, we have a lot of businesses that are just hanging in there barely, and, you know, EDA has done a little help now, and I'm wondering, since COVID seems to be hanging on a lot longer than some of us thought, whether or not we need to take a look at a second round of financial assistance as well, so.
Go ahead, Audra.
All right, then I think I've gotten what I needed for feedback. Again, what is on the list on the sheets came out of the surveys and the interviews. So now we're just honing down into those priorities. I'd still like you to put your 1, 2, 3s down on your sheets, but I did take some notes here that I'll compile and bring to the partnership group. So thank you for feedback. Like I said, we hope to do something mid-November together. As the process goes, and like we have a peer community meeting with Owatonna today too. So all that will be compiled with the rest of it. Any other questions quick before we let this topic go? All right, thank you.
Okay, you done with that?
I am.
All right.
I will make a motion to receive the update on the Community Economic Development Strategic Plan and rank top priorities.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none? Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yeah.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 6.3, 2021 budget for EDA general fund. Heather.
All right, I work pretty heavily with Nicole in finance on this budget. A lot of it I don't have any control over. It's salary and benefits and tax levy. One item to note, now that we have sold all 29 lots in Milford Heights First Edition, the EDA is no longer responsible going forward to pay assessments up there, so that helps keep that money to use for other projects. And so you can see we are budgeting, if you go down to the second page of the attachment, budgeting to have end the year with a surplus, which is nice to see. And I believe Nicole's on the line. Are you there, Nicole?
Nicole, are you online?
Oh, she was planning to call in. I was hoping she'd be there if you have any questions, because I might not be able to answer them, but
Right. Anybody have any questions for Heather?
I just saw a significant increase in this payroll, which you said you don't have a lot of control over, but it just seems like it's significantly.
I'm sorry, I am here. I just couldn't find the unmute button.
All right.
The salary is in line with the 3% increase that's budgeted for the citywide.
Okay.
Anything beyond that, it may have varied a little bit because in the past years, Heather's had so much turnover in the office that it's kind of gone up and down a little bit.
Okay. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, the budget to me looks great. No problems with it. So anybody?
I'll offer the resolution waive the reading to adopt the 2021 budget for EDA.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brom,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yeah.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 6.4, engineering report from the soil testing on the Garden Terrace 3 site. Heather?
All right, so last month you approved a proposal from American Engineering Testing to conduct soil testing at the Garden Terrace 3 site. And that soil testing has been done, and we've received the engineering report. The good news, we were happy to hear, they are not suggesting soil remediation because there are alternative options that are more cost-effective, such as aggregate or helical piers. So at this point, we have the report. It's something that Chris will be able to share with potential developers. He's worked with a few already, and this is some information they needed to see if they can get a project to pencil out in order to move forward. So that's our plan at this point. But we did want to note, you know, the possibility that if we do get a developer interested in developing something down there, we might come back to the EDA to consider providing funding toward the added construction cost for those piers as part of an incentive package in order to get some housing developed down there.
Thank you. Any questions for Heather?
I suppose there's no estimate of the cost that we may be contributing down the road at this point?
At this point, no.
Okay.
It would all depend on the type of pier. So as Heather mentioned, it was either aggregate or helical, and then depending on how far they go down, would also impact the cost. So if they only have to go down, 10 feet, that's a standard helical pier. For every foot they go down, we actually have to pay for a 10-foot section. So again, it just really depends where those piers will end up.
I'll just make a comment. I had one call on this particular subject of site boring and stuff. Question is why aren't we interested in adding a third ourselves through economic development rather than have an outside contractor, since we already have two?
We could go that route, and that's an option that the EDA could look into. If a developer comes in and they develop it, it's no debt on our end, and it's the same result. But if it comes down the road, 2-3 years down the road, and we have no bites or whatever that threshold is, we could potentially look at developing it ourselves at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard the opposite, like, why is the EDA getting in the housing, for rental housing? And, there's been that discussion about Garden Terrace in the past. And I think at the time it was done, we really did it to fulfill a need. And so I think this is just moving it another step forward. And I think what we could do is weigh all options with future site development. Either we could ultimately decide to take it on ourselves, or if a developer does come in, we could work in some sort of partnership. It's really a spectrum, a broad spectrum there potentially that we could do. But I just think this just kind of says, hey, we're ready to move forward with some activity there. I think the need for housing is still a continuous issue that we're facing, and we're doing our part. We've got this land available, so let's take a look at what we can do with it. So,
Thank you. Any more discussion?
So I'll offer a motion to receive the report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Oh, Heather, call the roll.
Commissioner Brum?
yes.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni?
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 6.5, customer relationship management software purchase. Chris?
President, members of the EDA, before you we have Coastal, Cloud, and Carasoft, which combined is components of Salesforce, to do an agreement with them in the amount of $22,719.38. And for just a brief overview of what a customer relationship management platform will do, it will basically be a database that all of us can enter information into. So every time we have a business contact, you know, if I talk to 3M, I can put in 3M, who I talk to, who the CEO is, email address, phone numbers. If we have a basic set of questions we want to ask businesses, we can populate those fields. And what it'll do is then we can actually start collecting data, and how we do programs, what programs we offer can all be based on what the community actually needs when we're sitting down and talking to CEOs, CFOs, managers, and things like that. And so one other point would be, if I talk to 3M, I will put my conversation in there, you know, what I talked about. So if for whatever reason Audra needs to go and talk to 3M, she doesn't necessarily hit on the same points that we've already discussed, unless it's like, hey, Audra, can you follow up on this one? And then she can check that these things have been marked off. You know, one additional thing that we can do with this program is the chamber really does a lot of business outreach. So we can let them use a license and have either, you know, Michael or someone from the chamber, when they go and talk to a business as well, input that same data in there. So again, we're hitting more businesses and compiling all the information into one place. So as far as Salesforce goes, which would be the Carasoft portion, they control the licenses for Salesforce. We would be looking at 5 licenses, and that would be a total of $10,219.38. And then Coastal Cloud is a subsidiary of Salesforce, what they call Gold members, and what they will do is they will actually build the economic development platform for us. And actually, I do have a small presentation on kind of what that looks like. So this right here would be our economic development homepage in Salesforce. So the minute you open it up, you can see all the data that you collected. So when we get it, all these numbers will be 0. It's completely customizable, but we don't have anything to populate any of the fields. So, but we can do, you know, workforce demand, fund spending, you know, cross section of jobs, or we can do, you know, our business expanding. You know, we can choose what these are. We're not tied to these, and we can change them at any time. Again, you can look at where pop-up will be, you know, the businesses, you know, opportunities, reminders of things that need to be followed up. So everyone can just log in and be like, oh, I need to follow up with them today. So it's a very comprehensive system to make sure that you're always following up on the leads and different projects. So this right here is kind of a general screen on each business. Again, it'll have, you know, what they're categorized as, what they're looking for, you know, time since any of us have reached out or we've had any activity, you know, whether it's a dead lead, you're working on it, a completed lead, we'll have all that in there, and then who the owner is, so who input that lead in the system. And then right here, again, you'll have your feed for activity, so everyone will, you'll be able to put in, you know, whether it's, you know, I think this is a good fit for the small business incentive program. There'll be a running tally on everything. So anyone could just pop in there that's a user and just know what's going on with that specific business. So as they move along in the system and we become more, you know, we work with them more, a lot of these fields just start populating. You know, they don't have to give us all the information. If they don't want to give us sales volume, that's fine, but we can customize this in any way that we want. Add fields, delete fields. Like if this is something we just don't want to track, we can take that out. If we want to know whether someone wants to increase, you know, their workforce, decrease, needs workforce, we can populate different fields. And that's what Coastal Cloud is going to do for us for that one-time initial setup of $12,500. They will customize this entire thing for us and do all the legwork before we implement. And then one other thing that I think is really good is we can actually track projects in here. So again, we're always looking, hey, they need to create 70 jobs. Well, we can track how many jobs they created, not like, oh, we have to, you know, talk to someone else to figure that out. We can populate these fields so we know when goals are met, you and when they're achieved. And again, fully customizable for different programs. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to really manage and be more efficient with our, again, our retention, attraction efforts across the board. So that's kind of the breakdown of Salesforce in general. So again, it'll be $22,000 this year, and then it'll be roughly about $10,000 every following year because it's an annual subscription. And then if we add users, that number will go up. But at 5 users, we'll be paying roughly $10,200.
You mentioned the chamber being a licensed user. Who else would be a licensed user? Would Heather's, would she have one license, or would just the whole city have a license, or?
So with the 5 licensed users, it would probably be myself, Audra, someone at the chamber, whether it's Michael or someone else down there. And then I was looking at probably Elwood. And as a building official, and John Nisley, because they work with the business community. Because one thing that we'll probably use farther down the road is a model that they could incorporate, and that'll be with planning and building. So anytime someone comes in and they get a CUP or a variance, or they talk to a business, they will be able to go in there and input that information into the business. So everyone will know, oh, they're applying for a CUP, they're applying for a variance. So just we're always on top of some of those things. But again, the users can be flexible if there's someone, that you as the board feel needs to be part of it. We can add a user or move users around, but I think the 5 that I just named are probably the core group at this point. While Heather is going to do a lot of, more housing development stuff, I don't think she's doing a lot of the economic development meeting with businesses. But if that ever changes, we could definitely add her as a user.
So that annual fee then of the 10,000 or whatever, is there any, once Coastal builds this, that annual fee has nothing to do with maybe additions or extra things that you want on?
No, that
on
is
it? It's
just the license for the software.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, that might be down the road if we do the planning and building component. That will be an additional cost, but it won't affect the subscription model. It'll just be, this is the price to add this model. It's done, but the license stays the same.
Thank you.
So is there a software program now that you're using that does any of this?
No.
So if X company calls Audra one day and says, I want to maybe move my factory, looking at some options, how does that get communicated to the other partners?
It usually doesn't. Word of mouth, email,
Those types of-
Excel spreadsheet.
This would create a new policy, I would assume, within the office, that if X company does call somebody, that's got to get entered into the system.
Yep.
So that the next person, or follow-up, 3 months, haven't heard from X company, maybe we should call them back and see what's going on, see if they need help or a push or.
Yep.
Okay. I support it. I think this kind of software is what we really need to keep an eye on. The problem is making sure everybody is using it appropriately and training. I'm a little concerned about an outside agency such as the chamber having access to it. Now, will they have read-only rights, or will they be able to access it and be able to do everything? I mean,
We can set parameters, but realistically, there's not a whole lot in there, that they can change. Because again, what we'll do is once a record is created, you won't be able to enter the same record again. You'll be able to, if you have another, like if you met with the CEO and then you met with the CFO, you can add another person as part of the company, but you won't be able, there won't be 5 3Ms in there, or 5 crafts or whatever it is. It's one entry. And that way, again, then we'll also know exactly how many businesses are in the city. And again, it'll make it programs and different incentives a lot easier down the road, because we'll actually have data on what the business community really is thinking and feeling versus, and this is what we think the business community is thinking.
so was there any thought about splitting up the cost for this at all, or just deciding that the EDA would pay for the whole thing? I mean, I see some city benefit here, I see some chamber benefit here?
To me, I think this is primarily going to be an economic development tool, and why it's before the EDA. While I do, trying to look at other funding, realistically, what happens if a partner pulls out? Then the EDA or someone else is stuck with the bill. And so it's really a nominal cost for a user. At the end of the day, it's only, I think it's like $1,700 for a license. Is that really going to impact the price? If I ask the chamber to say, hey, you want to pay $1,700? To me, if we just keep it in-house, that way there's no surprises at the end of the day. We always know it's going to be $10,000 moving forward.
And my last question, was there any other products similar?
There are a couple other products out there. I've used a couple of them elsewhere. And I would say Salesforce, just on what they can do, is a much more robust system and a better system across the board. And again, though, Coastal Cloud will essentially walk us through the process, sit down with us. So before it even goes live, and let's just say Coastal Cloud just disappears into the ether after their setup, they will sit down and make sure we have everything we need prior, and then they stick around another, I think it's between 30 and 90 days after it goes live to make sure what we have is what we want. And if we need to add anything, they'll come and redo that for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, how is data captured then? Is it all just by a business or potential business providing that to you? Do you have other means of collecting data on a particular business or industry from third-party sources?
No, and to the third-party source, while I think it would be nice to get a third-party source, like a Dun & Bradstreet or something like that, a lot of the information in there isn't sometimes current or sometimes incorrect. Part of it is having a perfectly clean slate with no data in it. We get to populate. The data is good because we go out and we actually collect that data. The only errors on our part would be input errors.
And I guess, to me, if you've got the participation and the willingness of the chamber, aren't they going to be a great resource for businesses voluntarily or providing data? Because it's only going to be as good as the information that gets put into the system.
Yeah.
And then you can look across sectors and industries, I presume, too, even locally, to see which ones. But that being said, now you're not going to allow this to be used for one business to get the goods on another business, for instance. It's going to be proprietary, and what you might be able to share is going to be limited.
Yeah.
And that, going back to like the chamber, then they would have some restrictions and limitations on how and when they might be able to share some of that information. Is that correct?
Yeah, to me, the only information that would be readily available to share would be any of, let's go, the industry or charts and graphs. Our businesses in New Ulm expanding, and they can show a chart on that, like that information. But as far as contact information, business information itself, no, that's not going to be available to the public.
And you said really that we don't have any system in place at all right now. So, for instance, maybe this is crossing, if a business in our community wants to understand like utility costs, there couldn't be information shared from the PUC that could be loaded into this system?
No, so what we would do is if someone said, hey, we want information on that, then it would be up to whoever they reached out to. We would put that in there, as a request for information, that they wanted information. We would then get that information and follow up and then mark that task as complete.
Okay, so it's just monitoring those interactions more so.
Yep.
And not necessarily keeping hard data, but
No.
more the interactions?
Yeah, so the
Okay,
hard data
okay.
that we would be collecting would be the initial kind of sit down, whether we create a business survey, intelligence survey that has a set list of questions,
Gotcha.
are you expanding, how many employees, square footage, things like that.
You have
We can
complete
populate
control over the content of that as
Yeah.
well. Okay, yeah. No, I think this sounds like a very good tool. to implement.
And then it's
Help us
not,
track and monitor what we're up to, basically, and
yeah, and then, you know, again, it's not mandatory for a business to give us that information. So if they don't want to give us that information, that's fine. It just means the data that we are able to present may or may not have everything in there.
sure.
Thank you, Chris. Mike, Jessica, anybody have any comments out there?
I guess my comment is I've used different CRM products before, and you know, they are a great tool for tracking communication you have with people, helping to follow up on things. So I think that's great to, you know, leverage those tools when you can. It's only as, like, I think it was someone said, it's only as good as the information you put in, though. So as long as everybody, you know, is getting the same training and utilizing it to the fullest, that's what's going to make it really worth the investment. So I hope there's just some, you know, follow up with that and making sure that it is being used in the best way it can be then for the dollar amount price tag on it. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
So this platform will be able to help you better report back to the EDA then as well?
Yes.
Okay, good. Not that you're not doing a good job, because you guys are.
No, but we'll be able to have, you know, how many businesses did we visit each month? We'll be able to tally that, you know, whether it's phone call, you know, we can break it out. Phone call, actual visit, things like that. And like I said, it'll probably be, you know, 6 months to a year before we can really utilize at least the chart portion of it. We'll be able to get some data in there, but to really utilize the chart portion and figure out what we want to report on, or maybe that's a discussion for the EDA to, you know, say, hey, this is the information we want to know about the business community. You know, it'll take some time to really populate a lot of those fields.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions? If not, entertain a motion.
I'll offer the motion to approve the city manager to execute agreement with Coastal Cloud and Carasoft in the amount of $22,719.38.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brom,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 6.6, assisting the city in purchasing land for a neighborhood park. Go ahead, Chris.
So before you, you have a request a request from the city council to ask the EDA if they would contribute funds to purchasing land for a neighborhood park in Dakota West. At its September 15th, 2020 work session, the council did ask for me to check with the PUC and the EDA to see if either organization would like to contribute money to the purchase of property in the Dakota West subdivision. This is a subdivision out over the Cottonwood River. It is a subdivision of about 70 homes, including the townhomes at the bottom. Residents in that area, they currently have to take, a very long bike ride, walk, or drive to their nearest park. We as the city, we don't own any land up there to develop a park at this time. The PUC at some point will be building facilities up there, potentially a new water tower up there. But at this current time, the PUC doesn't see putting the water tower up there, as the number of residents don't necessitate a water storage facility up there. There are currently 2 landowners up there that will sell land, are willing to sell land for us. And let's see if this pulls up. No. Okay. Well, in your packet, you did have the map. So there's the Retzloff property, which is closer to the neighborhood development, and they are asking $40,000 for that property. Its current assessed value is $6,200. Then you have the Golden property, which is right below that. That is assessed at $52,000, and they are asking $199,000 for it. Staff doesn't recommend purchasing any of the smaller lots inside the neighborhood for mini parks. If we are going to do a park up there, it does need to be what we would consider a neighborhood park. And then this just buys us the land. This doesn't get a park up there. This doesn't, pay for the equipment, the development costs, or any of that. That is a separate issue down the road. This just allows the city to purchase the land in that neighborhood because it currently is available. That land at the park meeting last night, that land has been available to sell for 5+ years. So is it extremely urgent to purchase now? Maybe, maybe not. Another thing is, development kind of has stopped up in that area. No one's looking at purchasing any of the other lands to develop those lots up there. So really, what is the future? Neighborhood park threshold essentially is 3 to 600 residents is what a neighborhood park would serve. Currently, there's only 70 households up there, so it doesn't kind of meet the minimum threshold. Tom is here to answer any other questions about the park itself. The city would be looking at using park funds for a portion of that, so about $100,000. So the city would be looking for $150,000 from other funding sources at this point in time. The Park and Rec Committee last night, it was a tie. There were eight of the 9 members were there, but it died on the floor for the recommendation to move forward with considering purchasing the land up there. So it could have gone either way if all 9 members were there, but at the meeting last night, it did end in a tie, so it died on the floor. So I'll entertain questions, comments.
One of the reasons it died on the floor, I've seen it in the paper today, is not so much purchasing the land, is depleting the whole budget, or the whole fund for that account within the Parks Department. I don't think any of this portion that we're talking about today was considered.
Well, yes and no. Tom did mention that they weren't going to deplete the fund. One of the other things that a commissioner did bring up was there are other neighborhoods that are severely underserved that have been waiting longer than this neighborhood in particular. Primarily Trolloc Estates, more down on both ends of town, the trailer park areas that are underserved, and they face the same problems having to drive or walk to a park. And so the Parks and Rec Commission really wanted to, do a work study session to see, what is the criteria for developing parks in the future, and not just, hey, this neighborhood is making the most noise, so let's deal with them, because there's some other neighborhoods that don't voice their opinions. What is the greatest good? So that's kind of where parks stood last night.
Chris, just to reiterate, the PUC would play a role potentially because at some point they mentioned, and I'm thinking of Nels Park where there's a water tower and a park in the same area.
Yes.
At what point do we know where that threshold has to be in terms of development for that to become feasible? You said at this time it's not necessary, but any projections how many households would have to be up there in order for that to become feasible?
They, talking with the water department head, they would need at least 30 or 40 more homes for it to be oh, now we need to get a water tower up there.
Okay. So a little ways to go yet, and I'm not certain how many new homes are going up there every year at this time, but,
And
I just kind of look at this as, should the EDA help the purchase of land for a park? Do we have a role as the EDA to help with that? I think you could almost argue in many situations that we could. And I think probably we do have some interest in helping to purchase this land. Do I have a dollar amount of that? No, I don't today. But I think if the city were to come back at a period of time when they're ready to look at the land, I think I might vote in favor of some of our funds going towards this, not a lot, but certainly assist in that purchase of that land. Because there's kind of a couple of reasons here. We want to extend that one road up there. Would we, as purchase of just the Retzlaff, would that basically take care of our city needs? Because we can extend the road, plus there's room for a park. I don't know exactly where that property line is over on the Golden side. But what I saw today is just whether or not we as an EDA have any interest in helping in this situation. I would say yes, but I wouldn't commit to any dollar amount today.
I think we've had this has come around before. I mean, we were asked to help with German Park, Herman Heights, and then we've got a financial commitment going forward for Vogel, up to what, 15 years was it, Chris?
10 years.
10 years? Okay. And at that time, what I was thinking is, okay, and I want to make a distinction here between economic development and community development, and I think there is a distinction you can make, and I would put a park like this squarely on a community development pathway and not for economic development. That being said, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think making parks and making your community desirable does have objectives that you could say fall in line with economic development. It makes it a good place to work and live. What I had proposed before was if we want to go down this path, that we set up a community development fund under the EDA and we just allocate a certain amount of money each year that could be met toward different community development purposes. Helping to assist the city to buy land would be a perfect chance to do that. But I don't think we want to go on such an ad hoc basis, just having them come and ask us for money, and then we're just supposed to give them money. I think we have to have a better defined set of parameters, and then I think we should budget for that year in and year out, so we kind of know what sort of commitments we'd want to make on any given calendar year. So that's what I would look at. That's what I would envision. I think we should have some time to maybe explore that option as the Park and Rec Department sits down and prioritizes some of the in their priorities with developing parkland, and maybe we could assist in that on an annual basis. Don't know how much that's going to be, but at least we could kind of set that groundwork now and know going forward, this is how much we're willing to contribute, along with all the other projects and different commitments that we've made over the last several years. That's all I got to say on the matter, I guess. So.
I guess the discussion.
My opinion is
Go
the
ahead.
fact that
Go ahead, Mike.
I'd say we table this based on the Park and Rec itself. I didn't see the paper. I didn't know what they did last night in regard to this. But in learning that, I'd say they're the main body as far as obviously that's their mission. So I can't support anything today. It's too unwieldy and without knowing a lot more things, including the PUC's plans for the future, all the above.
Got a motion you're making?
A motion to table?
Yeah.
sure.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? I guess in the process of tabling it, what I'd like to see done is we'll use the word, a project that we need for a street, we also need it for a water tower, and I think we need to get all the people together and work on it, because I think we need to take an active role in developing property, because we don't want to see the property sold and then we can't put a street to it, we can't have our water tower or whatever. So we need to have everybody together and look at the project as one. Plus, there is some possibilities, and that was one of the comments I made at the work session also, is it isn't that we're giving the money away and never going to see it come back, because there's a fair amount of this that can be developed and sold off for lots, for buildings, so you would be able to recoup your money. So I think it's something to, like Mike says, look forward on.
Who would get in the development business at that point then, Charlie? I mean, is that the EDA's role? I thought that was one of the things we were shying away from, is
Right,
developing
no.
lots. So somebody would have to play that role,
Right.
right? Would that be done, are you thinking privately, or?
I would think, yes, you'd have to.
Okay, just to clarify.
Anyway, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brum,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 7, Economic Development Director, Assistant Manager, Activity Report. Audra?
Yes, thank you. So my report is in your packet today. There's been some activity on the child care conference. We had to move that date to November 14th. The SBDC, just a couple other additions would be, there's a SBDC Start Smart call today. It's a virtual class at noon for people who are interested in starting a business. And Mike Hahn, the director of SBDC, will be facilitating that. We have 2 New Ulm businesses featured on the 1 Million Cups out of Mankato tomorrow at 8:30. Emily Atnip of Becky Bakes and Brittany Jones of Inspired Bridal will be featured on that call tomorrow. Do you have any questions about my report or other activities?
I don't. Anybody else?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Audra?
I'll offer motion to accept the report.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Heather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brum,
Yes.
Commissioner Fix,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. With no more business, meeting adjourned.